Okay. All right, let's get started with the meeting of Administration Legal Affairs Committee, Wednesday, February 12th, 2025 at 5 p.m. Prayer 2.0. Nate, you got it? Thank you.
Heavenly Father, we just thank you for another opportunity to come together and assist with the county's business, Lord. We just pray that you lead us to this meeting and keep the county's best interest in mind. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. 3.0, approval of agenda.
Move approval.
Second. And a second. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So moved. 4.0, approval of meeting minutes from January 8th, 2025 meeting.
So moved.
Second. All right, there was one little boo-boo we're gonna fix on page 3. But
Oh, I missed that.
it was just
There's
a
like a
The white.
whiteout
yeah,
thing. So we're gonna fix that.
I didn't know if that was just the way it was rendering or.
I went back, Mystery brought it to my attention at the beginning of the meeting and upstairs to make sure it wasn't the way I had transported it into a PDF that was on the original that Beth sent me. So I tried to edit it and it wouldn't let me. So
Sorry, we'll just fix it.
It's not, I don't see the one online showing
Page 3.
Page 3.
It just looks like a
Right there.
blank
Oh, there it is,
box.
yeah.
Not biggie, but make it right. So, all right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, let's go to 5.0, approval of claims. I have a total of $51,798.80. Get a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
In a second. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And we're all gonna sign these from now on, so we'll do that. We'll do that after here.
Is that,
What's that?
is that a change?
Yeah, that's a change.
It's kind of a best practice recommended by the auditors that the committee
I didn't
signed
do
the
that.
top sheet. I know, I forgot on Monday.
It's only a best practice.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
But we'll start doing it. So, okay. 6.0, public comment. Not seeing anyone else in the room. So we will move on to 7.0, departmental reports, and 7.1, county treasurer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep.
So I'm sorry I don't have copies of my report for you. I wasn't quite sure we were going to meet, so I will tell you I didn't get a chance to make copies. The claims amount that you just approved, 51.7 plus a little extra. My department contributed $147.98 to that, including a portion of our office water, some reimbursements to me personally for a rental car and fuel for attending an Illinois County Treasurers Association meeting and some flash drives. So all $147.98 came from the general fund treasurer budget. Financial reporting, I'm hoping you all had a chance to review the January report. I sent that out on Sunday the 2nd. Total county funds as of January 31st were down over December by a little over 2 million, about 6.75%. Total county funds are 20 at the end of January. Of course, as soon as you do that, it's different. $28.7 million approximately. 4 investments matured. If you remember the page that I have all the yellow highlights on, 4 investments matured during January, shown on page 3 of the report, earning $33,225 in interest for probation, GIS, ARPA, and mill rates. There are currently 30 different investments in place on behalf of 19 county funds. Maturity dates vary between the current month out to October. The next maturity date is February 20th, when I have 10 CDs maturing. And I've actually been in touch with several of those departments just to gauge their cash flow needs. So several of them are have asked me to invest again. Interest rates have actually creeped up a little bit. So I'm trying to encourage departments who don't have immediate cash flow needs to allow me to do that. Some of them are, as you get into construction season and things like that. So we're trying to be cognizant of some of those timelines. So as January ended, the value of all the invested funds was $15.852 million. Any questions about what you saw in the report? So I think I mentioned it in my message to you, but there are a couple of different lines now on the cover page. I'm showing, I usually give you the difference month to month total funds, but I'm giving you now the difference month to month in tax receipts. Okay. I think that's because that's what this page is local sales tax, income taxes. So I think that's kind of an important one to segment out. And then I'm going to be doing a year-to-date total, so you can kind of see the running date amount. So that's a little bit different there. And then on the final page, the page that, the color-coded page where I always have the adjusted cash column that almost never gets used, the tax anticipation advance, it's not a tax anticipation warrant, but an anticipation of property tax themselves on behalf of the nursing center. I'm keeping that here. There are 2 more payments to be made, so you will see that number change as those payments are made. So I don't know if anybody had any questions, because those 3 things were different than the previous month. All good? Okay. The audit team worked remotely last week on our county audit. They were on site last Wednesday. They did share a couple of extra best practices, as the administrator mentioned. I think things went very smoothly with the 5th and 10th floors. There was a lot happening in one day, so I think we got quite a bit done. They have listed their final fieldwork requirements with an early April due date in our portal, so we've actually gotten a lot of that done ahead of time. All board members, if you haven't yet, should be receiving a letter that's on my letterhead that the auditor sent. If you recall, you get a letter each year in reference to fraud investigations, fraud perceptions, fraud interviews. I encourage you to please respond as soon as you get that. That kind of held us up last year at a couple points, having to track some people down. So I kind of wanted to give you the heads up to look for it in case you haven't gotten it yet. On the collector side, senior citizen tax deferral applications still being accepted until March 1st. Just the one application received so far. All that information is available on my page of the website. And prepayment of property taxes is still available. That deadline this year is April 20th, so lots of time to do that if you're interested. Last week, I just signed the annual agreement for the tax bill printing, which makes tax season all the more real for, they're all surviving in it too, so it will be here before we know it. And before the meeting, there was discussion about the NACO Legislative Conference. I will be attending that again this year as part of a committee that I serve on for NACO. It's in DC, so I'll be out of the office February 28th to March 5th. If someone is indeed interested in taking advantage of the UCCI offer to attend, this is a little different than what they have offered in years past. So this is going on during the legislative conference, which is huge. It takes over the entire Washington Hilton. The really good things there are obviously some lobbying, some networking. Every federal agency is represented on the ballroom floor one of the days, and you can get some really good information, some good advice. If you're interested, if there are some grants we're pursuing, that was the case last year. There are also policy steering committees. We're introducing and voting on policies that will make up NACO's national platform. There is a Rural Action Caucus, and there is a Great Lakes Caucus. We're members of both. I'll be there for the Pensions, Finance, Government Affairs Committee, but these are open. People can come. You just aren't able to vote. But I would encourage, if you're interested in going, there's a lot of value in this particular conference if you're able to go. So that is all I have, unless you have a question.
At the beginning of your report, you talked about a 6% reduction. Is that anything to be concerned about?
No, not at all.
What do you attribute it to?
That we are not collecting property taxes at this time of year. So basically
So it's normal.
it's absolutely normal, and it's actually below. If you look at, if you're gonna divide out your expenses roughly by 12, we're under what 1/12 would be. And given that, 300,000+ of that was for a large unexpected expense at once, that's even better. So anything under 8 to 9%, I don't even blink. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Any questions or? Okay, let's move on to 7.2, County Clerk.
Thank you, Chairman. Part of the tax extension process, I'm trying to get as much done before I get the final multiplier. I had sent out the levy confirmations last month. It's not a requirement, but it helps alleviate situations down the road where the districts are able to see that we received the numbers correctly, we input it correctly. Also on those levy confirmations, it shows the bonds that they have. Notice with a few of the districts, they said, hey, this number isn't what I thought it was supposed to be. So they still have time before the March 1st deadline with the bonds to go back to their district. I know one school district is going back to change their bond agreement there. So there's still some outstanding bonds that will be filed with our office by the March 1st deadline there. Moving on from tax extensions, the redemption process, we've been working with some tax buyers. It's the time of year where they are filing the take notices. They send them to our office. We add the appropriate fees to each of the parcels, and then a certified notice is sent out to those that have delinquent taxes still. And then, as most of you know, the election process has been, I've been busy with that today. Finished all of the election judge assignments. We have less election judges that are assigned for consolidated rather than the November election. So if you hear someone that says, why wasn't I an election judge? By statute, and to be fiscally responsible, we don't need as many election judges, so we do have many on standby. And then you'll see on our website, we have the specimen ballot. I would have printed you copies off, but you would be trying to zoom in. It's best to do it. It's best to do it on the website because with the consolidated election, there's so many candidates on the ballot. And then there's also a list of all the write-ins throughout the county. We have 13 write-ins. And I just want to talk about the process. They say the filing period in some of the districts was in November, and then there was the caucus at the beginning of December. So people wonder, why does it take the county clerk so long to get these lists published? You'll see in some counties, these lists still are not available, but the 23rd of January was the deadline for the districts to file their certification with our office. And the State Board of Elections, they filed it on the 23rd, and they filed an amendment on the 24th. So that's what kind of holds us up. And then write-ins, they have a deadline of January 30th. Once we receive that information, the steps we take, we have to confirm the vote for number on the specimen ballot's correct. We have to confirm the names are correct. We've had districts where they spelled the name wrong. We don't see the petitions. The only petitions we see are for the school board. So we do a double, triple, quadruple check to make sure that name is spelled correctly. Because if it's wrong on the ballot, they're going to be upset with the county clerk, even though it may have been their local clerk that certified that wrong. We even had 2 counties that certified to us that had their certification was wrong, where they had a vote for 4, where it should be a vote for 3, or instructions for school board, instructions were wrong. So there's a lot of checking on our end to make sure that that specimen ballot's correct, and then we have to go through all the different ballot styles, 95 ballot styles, to make sure all of the districts are on each ballot. So that's the process. There's a lot more to it than just that specimen ballot that's posted. That's why it takes a little bit of time.
Nice work. Seriously, that sounds like a lot.
There's a lot of proofing, and I mean, it's, you gotta make sure the vote for is correct, the write-in lines, there's enough write-in lines. When you think about Lena School Board, there's 6 write-ins, but there's only 3 lines. The reason there's only, well, or maybe there's 4 lines. There's 4 lines. There's 1 candidate that filed. There's 4 write-in lines. Even though 6 candidates filed because it's a vote for 4.
Yeah.
You can only pick 4 people.
Yeah.
Early voting starts on February 20th. Something else I would recommend sharing, I've been trying to share as much as I can, but there's the perception that early voting only takes place on February 20th when they see that date. It's Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30, up until the election day. We're still even open as a voting location on election day of April 1st. We have just one UOCAVA ballot going out that has been requested so far that has to be out by Friday. That's to a military person. That's the deadline set by the state. And then on February 20th, that's the first day that vote by mail ballots can go out. We have a little over 2,800 vote by mail ballots that will be sent out.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
Process question.
Yeah.
in your mind, what is the most confusing thing that people are calling you about when it comes to township caucuses? That seems to be, I worked with 3 townships this year, and I don't want to even admit to that.
I think part of the confusion is it's only done once every 4 years.
All right, I understand that
I
part.
had some local clerks, they said, that would try to file all the petition papers with my office. And I'd say, we don't take the petition papers, we just take the certification. And they're like, well, this is the way we used to do it. And it's just confusion because it only happens every 4 years. And then I show them the example from when they filed it in 2021 in a blank copy. And they're like, now I remember. So it's showing the example. But the caucuses, there's a struggle with the caucuses. I would say new people coming, I mean, you have to read the caucus guide. If you read through the caucus guide, I think it answers a lot of the questions.
Well, we did do the caucus guide, but we had.
And there's even a format within the township caucus guide that shows you how to run the caucus.
Mhm. But it's still got to be the point where, well, do we need this page? We don't need this page. What page does the clerk want? And there were just a lot of questions that came up during those evening processes along the way. And so when, again, it goes back, I know it goes back to once every 4 years. And
I
it's
think
just,
once every 4 years is part of it, but the
caucus
guide, I mean, it shows at the end what forms need to be filed with the clerk's office and the
I found that
certification.
it ended up being, as long as we ended up at the end, that the township got the right names that they wanted. And we got those names filed, and it was kind of how it went. So, thank you.
The caucus guide helped a lot when you're trying to run one of those that you.
Yeah, I mean, because it
4
shows you,
years.
I mean,
Yeah,
the guide of, this is how you start the caucus, this is the form that needs to be done, and it lists a link to all the forms that need to be signed when people are entering the caucus to sign in.
yeah. I would,
Yeah, we did that.
if you're gonna lead a caucus, I'd recommend you get with a clerk that's gonna document the caucus and make sure you're all on the same page before you ever go to that caucus.
And even
Yeah.
the parties, I mean, the
Yeah.
parties have a responsibility
They do.
to each of the parties, and I don't think a lot of people understand that each of the parties, it's up to them to decide if they're gonna have that caucus. It's not up to the clerk to decide if that caucus is gonna be held for the parties.
Right.
We can help with the procedures, but we can't help ensure that the caucus occurs.
For each party.
Question. All right.
Any election questions or questions with our office?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job. All right, let's move on to 7.3 supervisor assessments.
I did not do a report. I don't have a whole lot going on. I'm just sort of sitting waiting. Like I reported last time, I had 37 appeals out of 11,000 complaints. Out of them 37 appeals, my new board review member, once again, thank you, Scott. He has been absolutely amazing. They gel very well. They got through every single one of them already. We sent out the tentative notices for the people that want hearings because they view them first and then whatever. Out of them 37 appeals, I only have 6 hearings. So I will be going fairly fast. And like Stephanie says, with the process and stuff like that, my hope is to have everything to Jasmine a couple weeks earlier then. The only reason I'm a little later is because one of the board review members, he decided to go somewhere warm too. So he was gone for this past week. So we had to wait. There was a week in between where we could do hearings and stuff like that. My last hearing is 4:00 on the 26th. I have everything possibly that I could have entered anyway. So the 6th I will have to, they have to decide on is the only ones I have to enter. And then it will go to the state, and then it's all in these ladies' capable hands. And then I roll my system and we start all this fun over again. So the other thing my office has done is because of the aging community that we live in, we had 5,000 senior freezes go out to people that could qualify. That means they're over 65, whether their income has, well, whatever, they automatically get sent out. And then the only new thing is, I don't know if anybody's aware, but the 911 coordinator is retiring. She was supposed to retire Valentine's Day. I don't know if she will or not, because they found a replacement and he quit 3 days later. Now they have a new one. It is actually Robin Stovall. So she and Mike have been working together so then they have the flawless transition from, because June and Mike have worked very well together to get all the addresses and stuff like that. So then obviously if you have a call that nobody wants to make, you are there very quickly. So other than that, Andrea from Freeport Partnership, we're going to meet the 20th. They're doing some new e-zone applications and some processes. So we're going to work with that together. So then they can do, because the last of the lots in Freeport that are over on Rye Ridge have been developed and have new houses. So now they're trying to get a different area so they can get more new houses built in Freeport. So we will be working on that process together. So that's all I have.
Any questions?
I like quiet.
All right, I think we are good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Let's move on to 7.4, County Administrator.
Monday's city county meeting, the chairman informed me that it was canceled due to the mayor being out of town. And it's just canceled for this month, right?
Well, she's gone for about a week and a half, so when she gets back, we're going to try to reschedule.
We already talked about the upcoming UCCI events. The annual reporting for the IMRF requirements has been posted onto the website, so that is there if anyone wants to take a look at that. Kind of echoing what the treasurer presented about the audit, they called the week of the 3rd on site, but they were remote for 4 of the 5 days. It was a busy week, and they were then in-house on Wednesday, on the 5th, and it was a lot of back and forth between 5th and 10th floor, but seemed to really make a lot of progress, and so far so good. So Jasmine, Nate, and myself and Sean Helms sat in on a voting equipment webinar, kind of web demonstration that will be going to the Finance Committee on Friday for approval. That is for voting equipment used in the county boardroom to vote on agenda items. So, if anyone saw that on the finance agenda, isn't voting equipment for elections, it's for county board use. So more information at that at finance. I have sat in on the webinars from IACPM and UCCI, NACO, with the legislative updates, different things that have changed and taken place. They've had weekly ones with those. Chairman and myself were involved in the call between TCM and Matrix Care, the initial call with that. Marcos has been following up on if another call between them will be needed. Hot off the press, and this will be distributed at the department head meeting and to employees tomorrow, since today was a courthouse holiday. We rescheduled the department head meeting till tomorrow, but the wellness screenings for the county dates are on there, and just kind of thought you might want to look at what information goes out to the employees and how easy it is for them to register for that. Department head screening tomorrow, or department head meeting tomorrow. Next Great Freeport Partnership meeting is on the 26th.
Can you talk about the board member training Carl's putting on?
Oh, yes, on February 22nd, Mr. Larson puts on a orientation for new or current county board members. Kind of goes, all of the department heads and elected officials are invited to that, kind of give a brief introduction and talk about the responsibilities of the department that they had. After that conversation, Carl leads a little bit of a training on Open Meetings Act and Robert's Rules of Order and that sort of thing. So that will be held, I believe he starts, is it 9:00? 9:00 on the 22nd. And he'll be emailing out or passing out booklets with summaries and things like that beforehand. But it's always kind of a good refresher, even if you have been on the board for a while. So.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to say, as a refresher, I would invite all of you to come, because since you've been elected, I mean, there are changes in OMA, there are changes in FOIA. I know I've updated my page to include some things I never really thought about, that I just took for granted that you knew, that it's become apparent to me that some people didn't know that my office handles. There's legislative changes, so I really think everybody can benefit from it. If you're available, I can't recommend it enough.
And Carl, does get breakfast pizzas
That's what I was
and
gonna say.
refreshments and coffee and so.
I have one question. We don't have to get into the details, but how did that meeting go between TCM and the Matrix Group? Did it go well or?
I think so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
TCM's been very accommodating.
Very good. All right. Thank you. Let's move on to 7.5, IT manager. Hey,
How's it going, everyone? January was very busy. I don't even know where to start. I will say that we're trying to juggle a lot of things all at once. And when I say we, I'm talking about myself and 3 Rock. January was probably the biggest bill that I've used 3 Rock for to date. So I don't want you guys to get alarmed with that. We're very busy right now. I do think that will even out as the year goes. But we just have a lot going on right now. Some departments spent some money at the end of the year that caused some projects for us at the beginning of the year to install some things. I'm not for sure. You guys might be aware ETSB 911 has a project going right now for Central Square and 911 that they're trying to get done. That has required some of our time as well. They held a training in the courthouse last week that required us to have that room to a certain point with new Wi-Fi, plenty of connections being set up. That had to communicate back to the city so they could do all their training. I think on the Tuesday alone, they had probably 30 to 40 people in that room for the training. And, you go in there holding your breath because you just never know what it's going to act like when you eat all those people. But it went off without a hitch. So we got some compliments back that it went better than they expected. I thought we'd have a hiccup or two, but it just went seamless. So we're grateful for that. But that room is very beneficial to what they're doing going forward as well. So today, Sheriff Stowell had people in cutting holes into the floor so we could run wires and set up new boxes in the floor. And I will give him kudos. He's doing an awful lot to improve our courthouse. Unfortunately, just about every project requires IT in some aspect. So we try to be mindful of that because that's on a timeline too. We kind of got to coordinate with other vendors and make sure that we're getting stuff done in a timely manner. Chanel's circuit clerk grant is probably coming in real soon. I know they followed up last Thursday with some follow-up questions, which means they're close to making the approval. And once we get that approval, we'll move forward with all of those projects. So I would say right now we're handling a lot of projects in break fix. And break fix in the IT world is as if it breaks, we go fix it. I know we had some CIC issues, a few different things with reporting that we had to do at the beginning of the year for 2024 that we got squared away. Website needs updated as we switch the years too, because you got to create the 2025 stuff so people can put their stuff out there. So a lot of transition into January. And unfortunately for me, I don't get called in on the weekend very often, but I hit 3 out of 4 weekends in January. It was the perfect storm where we had some issues out at the jail. I got to use my little fence door opener out at Highway for the first time. And, so it was a good run because I had never had to go out to Highway on the weekend, but I learned that there's an interconnect there that takes other businesses down as well if it goes down. So learned some new stuff. I'm glad to say it's settled down. I think we got everything rectified to this point, but that leads me to the $100,000 that you guys had approved. Right now I've got a lot of quoting going on because I'm trying to replace a lot of old equipment and get us, we handle a lot of the break fix and we react, but now we're trying to be proactive as well. So there's so many moving parts going on right now. I can't even explain them all, but I want you guys to know that, we're not only break fixing or fixing the broke, we're trying to move forward with other things along with the projects that are getting thrown into place. So it's just really hectic right now. And I'm hoping come April, May-ish, we can maybe exhale a little bit and just sit back and, be really confident that things are getting shored up in a timely manner. So there are some things that are reaching end of life. I put out an email last week. Windows 10 is no longer supported come October of 2025. That's going to require some computer purchases. I don't know that it's going to be as bad as what we think because we have upgraded a lot of computers. So a lot of them are compliant. We just need the users to upgrade to Windows 11 when it asks you. A lot of people don't like change, so they'll push it off as long as they can. My goal is to have them do it sooner rather than later so they can get familiar with it. So we don't have a bunch of questions in October on how do we use this, or it's not completely different, but there are some differences between Windows 10 and Windows 11. So we put that out. We are running an audit report to send to all department heads of what computers aren't compliant that would need to be replaced. And we'll kind of go from there. We are still working with the equipment that my predecessor purchased. We've tried firing that up 300 different times, and every time we're always missing something that requires us to purchase something else. So I hope to have that up in the next month or two as well, which will give us a lot of file storage. I mean, it is usable. It's just it's sat so long. Some of the serial numbers are no longer valid, so we had to open tickets with HP, and we had to. It's been a process. We have it all set up in the basement of this building. We have it all powered on, but we can't physically use it yet because we're jumping through all the red tape with HP trying to explain this guy sat on it for so long, and now that we're trying to use it, so we'll get there. It's just not something that happens overnight. So does anybody have any questions that I can kind of answer through all that chaos?
It's a lot.
I have one.
Okay.
I asked this last month of other staff here, but Nate, does somebody else know what's going on?
I will say this. I've never been more comfortable with another company that I've worked with as much as I am with 3 Rock. They already handled this building before I got here. It was kind of their deal, and when I started and we had Arrow, I'd never seen those guys, and we were getting billed, and I didn't know what we were getting billed for because there was no communication or whatever. I'm in constant contact with 3 Rock on a daily basis. And there'll be some days I'll be like, I got 5 projects I got to take care of. You guys handle the tickets today. And they do a fine job. And so if I got hit by a bus, I'm confident you're in good hands. That doesn't solve they have other things they have to do as well because they're a business and they have other clients. So they would have all the time that I have, but they do have a good, to me, they're my crew as well, right? So I share our spreadsheets. They know the county inside and out. So they have keys to the courthouse that they can get in when I'm not there, and complete trust. So yes, I do feel confident in their abilities, and if I didn't have them, I probably wouldn't still be here because it's a lot. It truly is a lot. And when I first got here, I was stressed out because I didn't have that help from Arrow. You couldn't get everything done. So the first goal was getting someone that would help, and they've been great. They've absolutely been great. So well worth the money. I will tell you that because we used to get charged whether we used it or not, and they only bill us for what we use. And it's money well spent. So I'm very glad that they're a part of what we're doing here. So
Thank you very much.
Great question.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have a
Yeah.
follow-up to that. Have you mapped out all of your projects that you'd like to complete for 2025? So to piggyback off what Steve said, if something were to happen to you, I understand this other group could come in and be reactive
Yeah.
to what's going on, but
I will tell you, I don't have it on paper and I will have to get it there. They are aware. We talk on a weekly basis and some of my quotes go through them. Some of them go through other vendors. They know everything that is our goal for this year, but I don't physically have it. Like if we all were to get hit by a bus, no, I don't. So I need to get that down, but yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
Great question. Yeah. All right. Thank you. That's a lot.
Thank you.
All right, let's go on to 7.6, report from strategic planning, effective government focus group.
We met January 13th, talked about a few different things. A lot of our tasks, a lot of our focus has been kind of in transition. One of the biggest things we talked about was some of the departments taking advantage of the grants and the kind of the connection with Greater Freeport and whatnot that we've tried to facilitate. It seems like those that have investigated have really enjoyed some of what they found. Jasmine, can you speak to, you actually said you find the timing of it to be an issue. Can you speak to some of those details you brought up? Because I wrote down that you said it, but I didn't write down what you said.
Yeah, one of the notes that Chanel and I, one of the problems we had, and then she had mentioned Sheriff Stovall wanted the department head to possibly be a part of the budget policy when that is done for 2026, to maybe look at the grant process a little bit. Because Chanel and I, at least I can speak on my behalf, when we get the grant, the deadline and we have to submit it and we're late signing it, I always have to ask for an extension.
Right.
There's no county match that's needed. So maybe revisiting the budget policy a little bit, so one, I can be within the deadline and especially if it's not a county match. I think there'll be a little more discussion at that time, but that was probably one of the problems we had, and we thought the only way it could be fixed is to move forward in the future looking at the budget policy. So we're complying with it.
It sounded like we've gotten by with duct tape and everyone kind of understands why that's needed, but we can avoid that altogether. Yeah.
Especially if it's a grid that's already been.
Right, so many of them
Something
are
like that in the
annual
last
kind of
3
things.
years.
I hope I'm not stepping on toes because that really isn't my goal here. But is the budget policy, is that like statute based? Is that county decided or what? Because the biggest pet peeve I have is that we go through 5-6 budget meetings. And then when it comes around to like needing to spend the money, you have to go through a process that almost takes you 30 to 40 days before you can actually turn around and do something. And I know in case of an emergency, there's always something we can do. But I got $100,000 that was approved to me to fix up the county, and I would just like to purchase the stuff and move forward and hope that people trust that I know what I'm doing instead of, how do I want to say this? Quotes are generally good for maybe 30 days, and then the price fluctuates or changes, and then you just kind of end up into this huge thing. And I know right now it's $2,000 or over, I think, right, that goes to.
For a manual check.
For manual check, regular claims.
Regular claims, there's no limit. It's manuals. That I have to write it right then and there.
It's 5 for
No, it's two,
But
up
the
to 5
department
if
head
the
has
committee chair
spending authority
oversees.
at
Right.
2,000.
me. It's 5 for me to sign up to 5 for me to sign up.
So if I don't need a manual check, as long as it's 5 or
Register
below,
regular claims.
No, you can do whatever, yeah.
Not
Only-
anything.
I'm sorry, I misspoke.
You didn't
Level of
misspeak.
expenditure. It's just that spending authority, that very
Is for
specific,
manuals.
is for manual checks only because it doesn't go through approval
no issues.
until. Actually,
After being a circuit clerk, you didn't realize that?
No, and every time I talk about it, it's $2,000 or above. I thought I had to go to committee.
No.
I have no issues then.
Actually, if I could, Mr. Chairman, kind of tag along to, because I've had this discussion several times with different board members over different iterations of the county board and previous administrators, that you have already approved that spending. So not that I'm saying there should be less oversight. I'm not trying to suggest that at all, but you have department heads who you have already approved their requests. They're not new at what they're doing. We all have oversight, we talk to our committee chairs as needed. I don't know that the level of hoops, the number of hoops that sometimes we jump through is absolutely necessary. But I don't know, again, that may be something that could be addressed in budget policy, but claims payment is county code. So that too could be, if you want to think about that, be altered, changed to maybe accommodate some flexibility there, especially when 30-day quotes, if they're less than that, if you get your quote the night of the county board meeting, and there's sometimes the dates are problematic. But you really already have approved that spending, and as long as that money is still available in the budget, you're approving the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah, my thing is if I abuse it, come hammer me. But if
Right.
I'm staying within budget and I'm just trying to get stuff done for the county, let me roll.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. You do receive a revenue and expenditure comparison report every month, usually within 10 days, often sooner, so you can see the previous month. You have almost real time. So it's just something to consider in the back of your mind. I don't think it's a huge deal if you don't want to explore that topic further, but
And this isn't you guys, this has been a discussion for
ever.
well, and I ran into a problem. I almost missed my published deadline because of the simple fact,
Right.
because I had a large mailing and I didn't have, luckily MailWorks was fine with doing it beforehand, but now this year they want me to pay a little ahead of time and then do whatever because of this, and I will have a larger one this year to try to, like you said, I got the quote and then I had to send it out, and then
I think
I
it's-
had the money in the budget. It worked out okay, but
I think it's usually just a timing issue.
it
And
is.
some vendors do require prepayment for postage. If you have a large postage, that's one of them.
Yeah, they do like the and I don't always know when it is. Sorry.
I think we originally started talking about applying for grants.
Sorry.
Oh,
Oh my
Back
gosh,
to
I'm
that.
sorry.
We put that in there. Steve, you were on the finance committee when we did this, because there was nothing in the budget policy that addressed applying for grants, especially when it came to matches. So while I will agree that it is imperfect and it is cumbersome, it's better than what it was because, and Steve probably remembers this, you will get departments, unfortunately, that will apply for grants out of the blue that will have a match, and it's a non-budgeted expense, but they're coming right back and saying, we gotta approve this, I already got this grant. So we needed to rein that in a little bit. And not only that, but we have had departments in the past that would apply for a grant, would bring on new staff because of the grant would go away, the staff stays.
Mhm.
And it's additional expense, and then they would come back and wanna take money from the general fund to help with that. So we did have to rein that in.
Sure.
And I would love to find a better mechanism, because you're right, those grants pop up like that, and you've got limited time to figure out if you're going to apply. So by all means, if you can, put your thinking cap on and come up with a more viable solution to where there's still adequate oversight, I'm all for it.
And I think that's where we're, now that we've kind of opened this door to see what's in the room, that's what we'd like to do, is kind of revisit. And maybe it is a broader conversation about a number of things in the policy. But yeah, especially because we want to shine a light on grants, we want to make them easy to use as well. Take the advantage we can.
The other thing I find ironic about grants is some of them, you have to give everything plus a DNA sample, it seems like, to prove it, and then other grants don't ask you for anything. There's no consistency from one grant to the next, and
There won't be.
Yeah.
no.
Well, and there again, I think that's why working with facilities like Greater Freeport that have some experience in this, or a grant writer like we've toyed with exploring, that's where that kind of position would come in handy to navigate some of those abundant hoops or no hoops at all.
Gotcha.
But I do think that we want to make sure that we don't have other consequences of participating in those that we don't know ahead of time.
Correct.
We need to know them ahead of time.
Well, and there again, I think that's why having it not just be the first person in the department that applies is that's where we get into trouble. Right. Okay, good. So next meeting, we'll, I guess, start exploring what, I mean, if we have the liberty to start exploring how it can be rewritten in specifics.
I was just gonna say, if you need something changed in the policy or bring it this way or through the committee here. we'll-
Budget
Yeah,
policies.
when we have something specific, yeah.
Approved through finance, so.
Yeah.
One,
Oh, that one.
one final thing, if I may, just as an example of why this does work, is the highway department. We found a grant through the Hood's
Yeah,
office
right.
for railway crossing.
Safety.
Mitigation.
Safety.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Mitigation.
And we've identified a project on Bolton Road. It all sounds great, right? We went through the process, engineering is going to be covered, but the construction we're looking at is most likely not going to be covered by this grant. And yet, if we didn't have this in the budget policy and it didn't have to go through a committee like this, we could be on the hook for this crossing of well north of $1 million that we just simply don't have. Yeah. So in this instance, it works.
Another thing we discussed was the intranet and kind of the dipping our toes in that. And I know. It seems like it's a lot of guidance, a lot of getting users to understand what it will provide and what it's not meant to serve, and that's going to be a slow process.
Yep.
And again, we'll beat that horse until it does what we want. But it does seem to be underscoring the need for a dedicated HR person, and it seems to be dovetailing into that. So we want to, again, continue to monitor how the intranet and kind of the organization of some of the pieces starts to point us in that direction as another one of our subset goals. And our next big subject that we want to focus on is start looking at succession planning, especially for our department heads and on down. We've got a couple names that we all know, like, yeah, in 2 years, we're going to be up a creek. But we talked about even just as people move, as people transition. So we want to put that on the front burner now, and that's where we're going to start directing our attention. If you have any specific thing as it relates to that category you'd like us to consider, please let us know. Otherwise, that's our game plan.
Very good. Alrighty, let's move on to 8.0. There is no old business, no new business. How about any comments from the committee members? Anybody got anything else?
I don't have anything else.
Okay. And there's nobody here for public comment, so let's go to 12.0 executive session. 5 LCS 120/2C. Employment matters, the employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees. Can I get a motion to go into executive session?
To participate in executive.
And a second. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Thanks, everybody.
You too.
Thank you.
Can you shut that door, Jasmine, please?
This one too.